Welcome back, my Pontiac High School students. Today we are going to be looking at protections provided within the Bill of Rights. Last time we just looked at how they were proposed, how they were ratified, how they were added to the Constitution, and why they were added to the Constitution. But what do they do? Well, that's what we're going to get into today. The Bill of Rights protects our rights from the government. In here is the idea that we may just believe that we have the right to say what we think, the freedom of speech, but it wasn't actually in the law, wasn't in the Constitution. So we wanted to make sure that that was actually in the Constitution, so it protects our rights. These rights broadly fall into three categories. We have individual freedoms, we have protections against the abuse of power, and we have the rights of the accused, or basically we have a list of rights that we have, individual freedoms. We have certain things that the government cannot do, that's protection from abuse of power, and we have rights of the accused. That is, if you are accused of a crime, this is how things must be handled. All of those are spelled out by the Bill of Rights, and we will be summarizing them today. All right. First big block, we want to talk about the First Amendment. All these ideas, religion, assembly, speech, press, petition, those are all First Amendment rights. The separation of church and state. Separation of church and state is a principle that many governments have had for a while, and it means that the government will not interfere with religious practices that don't interfere with the rights of others. That is, if you want to go to temple or mosque or church, that really doesn't impact anybody else's life, and please feel free to go. But if you have a religion that believes in human sacrifice, that might not be okay because it interferes with somebody else's right to live. So that's a no-go. But most religious practices are covered by the freedom of religion. Our second right within the First Amendment, citizens can assemble in peaceful groups for any purpose. We cannot, as a government, limit the right of groups to get together so long as the intentions of that group are peaceful. But if a group gets together and they start to riot and create a danger to both property and people, well, they don't have that right because it is not a peaceful meeting. So all peaceful assembly is allowed. Speech and press. You have the freedom of speech. You can say anything that you wish, except you're not allowed to slander. Slander is not covered by freedom of speech. Slander is when you tell lies intentionally, that is, you told a lie and you knew you were telling a lie, and you did that in order to damage a reputation, either of an individual or a group. That is not protected free speech. There are a number of other things that aren't protected as well, like if your speech creates a clear and present danger, that is, if the speech that you say is going to result in dangerous situations for somebody at that moment. The example given here is yelling fire in a crowded theater when there is no fire. Well, people are going to run, people are going to get trampled and hurt and injured to no good purpose. There was no fire, and that is not protected free speech. All right. Freedom of press, and really of any other form of media. It's not just newspapers, it's the nightly news program, it's websites, it's blogs. All of that counts as press. And the press can criticize the government without any fear of punishment. Again, however, what they say has to be true, or they at least have to believe that it's true. If they print stuff that they know is false, and they print it to harm the government, that is called libel. It's very similar to slander, and it is not allowed. All right, petition. Citizens have the right to contact their representatives and suggest changes to existing laws, or even to propose a law. It doesn't need to be a congressman that proposes a law. I can propose a law. You can propose a law. We just have to submit it to a congressman to officially file that and introduce it in the House of Representatives. But we have the right to do that. We have the right to call our congressman and tell him, hey, we don't like how you voted on this bill. Or, hey, congressman, I hope that you lose in the next election because you are a lousy congressman. You can do that. It's all protected. All right. Protections against abuse of power. The Second through Fifth Amendments really focus on protecting citizens from this abuse of power by their government. The best known example of this is probably the Second Amendment. Second Amendment allows citizens to bear arms and form militias. Militias are informal armies, and you can form one of those. This right has been interpreted to allow guns for personal protection as well. It's not in the Constitution that you, as an individual, get to own a gun and have it at home, and et cetera, et cetera. If we were to read the Constitution itself, it says a well-regulated militia, okay, that's one of these informal military organizations which is regulated by the state, being necessary for the security of a free state. The rights of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be abridged. Okay, meaning these militia individuals need to have their weapons for militia purposes. But it's been broadened that you can have a gun for your own personal protection. Does it mean you can have a tank? No, it does not. But you can have weapons within your house for personal protection, or if you're licensed to do so, you may carry them. Third Amendment. The Third Amendment outlaws the forced quartering of soldiers during times of peace. That is, the United States government cannot tell you that you have to have members of the U.S. Army or Navy or Air Force living in your house, sleeping in your beds, eating your food. They can't do that except during times of war. If Canada were to invade and we were to need to move the entire U.S. military into Michigan to protect us from those nasty Canucks, well, we wouldn't have enough places to have them sleep. And in that situation, the Third Amendment would not apply, and soldiers could be housed with you. All right, searches and seizures. The Fourth Amendment ensures that police cannot enter your home without reason to believe you've committed a specific crime. This is called probable cause. They cannot come into your house just to look for evidence. They can't say, you're a bad person. We don't like you. We're going to go into your house and we're going to find something criminal in there and we're going to throw you in jail. No, can't do it. They have to have a specific reason to believe that you have committed a specific crime, or they can't come in. Likewise, your property can only be seized if it was used in the commission of a crime, or if that seizure serves a greater public need. So, if you rob a bank, but you do so on foot, the police can't take your car. But if you rob a bank and then you drive away in the car, the police can take the car. Seizures of public need. This is like if we need to build a bridge, or this happened in Rhode Island not long ago. They needed to expand an airport, and expanding the runway for the airport meant that they needed to take some houses that were in this neighborhood. So they found out what a fair price for the houses were, said, hey, we're going to give you this much money for those houses, but we need to take those houses. And that is allowed within the Fifth Amendment. Okay, protections of the accused. The Fifth through Seventh Amendments protect those who have been accused of a crime. So if you ever find yourself in court, these are your magic amendments. It ensures that the government follows certain rules when investigating this crime. And those rules are called due process of law. Due process of law. And if the government doesn't follow due process, they cannot put you in jail. They can't break the law trying to prove that you broke the law. Doesn't work that way. Fifth Amendment is a big one here for people. Three big guarantees within that. Number one, you can't be forced to testify against yourself. You can't be put on the stand and forced to give your account of your own criminal activities. It's not allowed. Number two, citizens may not be held without evidence of a crime. If they arrest you, there must be reason to believe you committed a crime, and they have to have evidence. Without the evidence, they can't hold you. They have to let you go home. Number three, citizens can't be tried for the same crime twice. This is called double jeopardy. If you are tried for a crime, let's say you robbed a bank, and they try you for that crime, and they find you not guilty, but later they find other evidence that really suggests you did do it, too bad. They had their shot, they didn't get you. You get the bank's money. Not that I encourage that. All right, trials and punishment. Citizens are entitled to a trial by jury in criminal cases. They have a right to attorney, and they have the right to a speedy trial. This is all covered in the Sixth Amendment. A trial by jury means you have a trial with a group of your peers. These are not government officials who are trying to determine your guilt. You have the right to an attorney. If you can't afford one, the state will provide you one. And also, your trial has to be speedy. It has to be done within all reasonable haste. Now, sometimes this means it can still last over a year, but it depends upon the crime and the situations around it. Punishments cannot exceed the crime which was committed, and citizens are protected from cruel and unusual punishments. So we can't say that you stole a loaf of bread, therefore you have 5 years in prison, and it's going to be solitary confinement while people force you to watch musical movies from the 1950s, because that is cruel and unusual and excessive punishment for stealing a loaf of bread. So that is not cool. They can't do it. You steal a loaf of bread, your punishment should reflect the fact that you stole a loaf of bread, not that you stole a car and then ran it into a bunch of nuns. Okay, protecting other rights. The rights of American citizens are not limited to those that we just talked about. We have more rights than those that we just covered. The 9th Amendment states that and guarantees that for us. We have more rights than those. And then the 10th Amendment, government powers which are not held exclusively by the federal government or denied to the states are reserved to the states. Basically meaning that if the Constitution doesn't say that only the federal government can do this, or states are not allowed to do this, then states get to do it. But if the Constitution says it's only for the federal government, or states you can't do this, then you can't do it. Okay, that was a lot today, but I'm glad you stuck with me. That was all. I hope you learned more than one thing, and farewell.